Hello everyone, and welcome to my very first YouTube video. I'm Bertie and I hope you enjoy. I didn't have much of a plan going into this video, but with my headband and the green background I decided to do kind of a summery look. Plus I really wish it was summer, so that's part of my inspiration. I'm starting off by priming my face with the Hard Candy Sheer Envy Coconut Water Primer Stick. That's a mouthful. It is a moisturizing and cooling primer, which is good for my skin because it's either dry or dehydrated or somewhere in between usually. It makes your skin feel really smooth and soft. And then for my foundation, I'm using the NARS Sheer Glow in the color Mont Blanc, which is I think either the second or third lightest shade. I just put some on the back of my hand and dot it all over my face. I honestly do not use all that much product because I really don't like to use things that are super full coverage, and this foundation does have really good coverage. And I'm just using a very damp Real Techniques beauty sponge to blend it all over. And then for my concealer, it is the Tarte Shape Tape in the color Fair, which is definitely the lightest shade. And the reason I use such a light one is I really just use it to highlight my face. I put it in sort of the T-zone. I don't use it for blemishes very much or anything like that, so I just kind of use it to highlight. And I'm using that same beauty sponge to blend it out. And it kind of looks like I put this in like fast speed, but I'm really just bouncing it on my face that fast. Okay, this one's actually fast speed. Kind of feels like you're getting punched in the face with a marshmallow, I'm not gonna lie. So that's all blended out, and then for my bronzer, I'm going to use the Do the Hoola. I honestly don't use this very much, but I thought it would be good for sort of like a dewy, summery, glowy type of look. And I'm just taking a little bit on the back of my hand and dotting it kind of like in my contour areas, so right under the cheekbones. I'm going to put some on kind of the top part of my forehead and along my jawline. The good thing about this product is that it's pretty thin in consistency, so it really doesn't take all that much effort to blend it out. Although looking back, I think it would have been a little bit easier to use like a dense like foundation brush or something like that rather than a sponge, but the sponge did okay. So I'm just blending that all out. Normally I use a powder like contour color, like the contour kit from Anastasia, or I do like the Hoola, like the regular Hoola bronzer a lot. I like the regular and the Hoola Light. I wonder if they make Do the Hoola in Hoola Light. And then for my blush, I'm using the Dandelion Dew. I'm not sure why I'm using so many Benefit products, but they appealed to me apparently. I like this blush because it's one of the very few liquid blushes I found in a long time, and it can be a little bit overbearing if you use too much product, but as long as you have a light hand and blend it out, it works pretty well. And I'm just patting that in with my fingers. And for highlighter, sticking with the Benefit theme, I'm using the What's Up, which is kind of like a highlighter stick. It's sort of a champagne-y, almost golden color, which I think complements my skin pretty well. I can't do things that are too golden very much because I'm so fair, but I think this one worked out okay. And I'm just blending that out with my fingers. Sometimes sticks like this tend to kind of make the foundation you're wearing patchy, but I tried to be sparse with it. I am going to put a powder highlighter over it later, so this one doesn't have to be perfect. And then to set my under eyes, I'm using the Kat Von D Lock-It Powder in Translucent and putting way too much on my brush. Normally I do this like immediately after applying my concealer, but for some reason I forgot to do it. So I'm just putting that wherever I put my concealer, just to set it in place. I think if you do it directly after your concealer, it prevents it from creasing, which is why I like it. But I'm kind of just blending out the creases with this brush, which is a Real Techniques brush. I'm not sure what the type is. And now for eyebrows, I'm taking a $3 or less. I can't remember. Elf eyebrow brush. It has a spoolie on one end so you can brush your eyebrow hairs into place, and then an angled brush on the other side. And then this is the Ka-Brow in shade 5, which is probably has been my all-time favorite eyebrow product since about 4 years ago. And I'm just drawing a line on the bottom perimeter of my eyebrow, and then I'm going to draw a line on the upper perimeter, and I kind of make a stencil of the shape of my eyebrow before I fill it in. I think that just makes it a little bit easier to stay focused on the shape that you're trying to make your eyebrow. And then you can just kind of go in and sloppily fill in the center of it. I'm trying to do some upward strokes to create the illusion of like hair in the inner part of my eyebrow. I don't really think it worked out that great, but it does help with the kind of faded blending look if you turn your brush a little bit and do it upwards rather than the same direction you do it for the rest of your eyebrow. I was having issues with the shape of my eyebrow on this one. The tail of it looks, it kind of looks like a math symbol, like, you know, I'm really bad at math. I can't remember what the symbol is called. It's not the division thing, it's the other thing. I don't know. But that's what my eyebrow looks like. And I go back and fix it later, don't worry. I'm just doing the same thing for my other eyebrow. I had a little bit less trouble with it. I try to keep my eyebrows as straight as possible. That's how I have my friend wax them. I tell her to make them as straight as possible, and then I try to do that when I'm applying my makeup too, but sometimes they turn out a little bit angular. And then I'm going in with my same foundation that I used and just kind of cleaning up the lines I made. For some reason, I find it easier to make a straight line with the foundation / concealer than the actual eyebrow product. So I always kind of use that as a backup if my eyebrows don't turn out the way I want them with the Ka-Brow. And I like using my foundation rather than the concealer just because, like I said, my concealer is always significantly lighter than the rest of my face. So I just go in with the exact same color I put on the majority of my face, and it blends out really nice. This is a small, tiny concealer brush from Real Techniques. That's what the majority of my brushes are. I feel like they're a good price point, but they do the job of an expensive brush. And this right here is the Essence version of Gimme Brow, which has been recalled. I think it might be back on shelves now, but I haven't gotten to pick some up yet. I'm actually using the brush from Gimme Brow because I like it a lot better than the brush that came with this stuff. And it's a little bit less messy because the Make Me Brow from Essence is really thin and liquidy and tends to be a little bit messy. So for eyeshadow, I'm going into the Jaclyn Hill palette and taking the color Butter, and I'm putting that in my crease as a transition shade. I don't know if you can tell, but the first blending brush I tried to use for this had blue eyeshadow on it without me realizing, and it got all over my lid, so I had to jump up and grab a different blending brush. This one is from It Cosmetics. It's a double-ended brush, so one side is all over shadow, and then the side that I'm using currently is the crease. And then I took the color Creamsicle, and I'm kind of putting that over it. I'm bringing it out pretty far, like toward the end of my eyebrow, because this isn't going to be a super complex eyeshadow look, so I wanted it to have a little bit more oomph. And I'm just blending that in. It always ends up being super opaque on one eye and really just not there on the other eye, so I have to go back 100 times to make sure they're even. So now I'm taking the all over shadow end of the brush and I dipped it in the color Hunts, and I'm just putting that right on my lid. I like that color because it's almost like a terracotta but a little bit deeper, and I think it blends really nicely with the Creamsicle color. So I'm just putting that on my lid and bringing it up right to my crease and then stopping and taking the Creamsicle color again and just kind of blending it out. I do a lot of back and forth with these two colors in this process, just to kind of make sure they blend in together and there are no harsh lines or anything like that. I don't think I used any darker colors in the crease, but if I did, it probably would have been the color Jax, which even though I probably didn't use it, you definitely could with this. And I'm taking that same Hunt's color and putting it on my lower lash line with a small Morphe brush. I'm just taking it about 3/4 of the way in toward the inner part of my eye. And then I'm going to take the creamsicle color and put that kind of in the inner corner, just so that there's something there and it's not plain eyelid. And then for my brow bone highlight, I'm using the color in Light, which is probably just the palest, most highlighty shade in the Jaclyn Hill palette. That's one I always use to do my brow bone whenever I'm using this palette. And I just use my finger for that because I feel like it packs on the color the best. At least out of all the brushes I have. I need to do a brush haul very badly. And for eyeliner, I'm using my trusty $1 to $3, I think the price has changed, e.l.f. liquid liner. I've literally been using this, I think, since I was 14, so it's been about 10 years. It doesn't necessarily last as long as an expensive eyeliner like the Stila or Tarte or something like that, but I do love the way that it applies. I like using a brush rather than a felt tip, just because I feel like I personally have more control with it and it puts more product on my eye. And I do think that the ones that are in little cones like this, they last a little bit longer than a felt tip eyeliner, just because there's probably more product in them. And also, whenever this one runs out, I only have to pay like $3 to get a new one. I'm just doing a basic wing, nothing too crazy, and attempting to make both eyes match, which you know how that goes. I do sometimes feel like I could do liquid liner in my sleep just because I've been doing it for so long with the exact same product. I have my days though where it does not work out. I'm doing that thing where you keep adding more and more product because they don't match. Okay, so now I'm taking my eyelash curler. This one's also from e.l.f. It's not my favorite because it's a little bit too straight for my lashes. My eyes are really like round. So it doesn't necessarily grasp all of my eyelashes, but it does the job. And then I'm taking some Ardell Wispies and Duo Lash Glue, and I let that dry for probably about 30 seconds or so. And I'm just placing that as close to my natural lashes as possible. I really like putting on false lashes whenever I have thick winged liner on like this because it hides the lash band and you don't have to be quite as precise. And the glue dries clear, so you don't have to worry about that either. I've tried the quote black glue before from Duo, but it always looked a little bit blue to me and I just found that it was more messy, so I just went back to the clear. And I'm just holding those into place until they feel dry enough to stay on their own. My inner corners are always my trouble areas, so I make sure that those are like super in place before I'm done with my lashes. And for mascara, I'm taking the Bad Gal Bang by Benefit. This is their new one. Oh, and I was watching a Graveyard Girl video where she was playing with a pimple popping toy game thing. It was really disgusting and hilarious, so I was cracking up. But like I was saying, this mascara is one of my new favorites. It is kind of similar to their Real mascara for me, which is probably my all-time favorite mascara. It does a good job of giving you volume, but also separating your lashes at the same time and making them super long. I need to buy the full version. I just got like the little $12 half tube because I had never tried it before, and I ended up liking it a lot. And I think a longer wand would make it a lot easier to apply. So that is most of the look completed, and for some reason I decided that what it needed was some fake freckles. I usually use powder products or even like eyebrow products for this, but I decided to try out using the Chubby Stick Sculpting Contour by Clinique, partially because I don't use this enough, so I wanted to use it for something. And I just took the tip of an angled brush that I don't really use anymore, and I'm dotting it all over my face, kind of where my natural freckles like develop their patterns. You can't really see my natural freckles very much, so it was hard to tell where to put them, but I usually do it kind of up the side of my face like that, and then of course close to my nose. And I'm patting it with my fingers so that it's not as dark as it is when you first put it on. That way it looks a little bit more realistic. I also try to keep them as clustered close together as possible. I feel like that makes them look a little bit more realistic too, rather than when you just have like 5 dots really far apart from each other on your face. I think it looks alright. So then for my powder highlighter, I'm using my very well-loved Becca highlighter. I think the color is Opal. It's like the second to lightest one, and I'm just putting that where I put the What's Up earlier. And then I'm going over it with the Fenty Beauty highlighter. I forget the name, but you know what it is. And I'm just putting that over it. It's a little bit too golden for my skin, like I was saying earlier, but I mean, for the type of look I was going for, just like a fun, like summery, I don't know, it matches my headband, so I went with it. Also, I'm obsessed with this highlighter, and I use it any chance I can get. And for lips, I'm using probably one of my all-time favorite lipsticks, which is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Liquid Lipstick in the color Catherine. I have loved this lipstick for probably a year now because it's really opaque, but it doesn't feel super cakey or crusty on your lips, and it stays forever when you wear it, like literally forever. And I'm super OCD about applying my lipstick. Normally I would use a lip liner, but I do not have one that matches this lipstick for some reason. And that is the finished look. Look at me in slow motion. Everyone looks better in slow motion. All right, thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.